Whoever controls the oceans has power, and in the high north, a new ocean is being born. I'm going to take you to Greenland, the largest island on Earth, where you can still see the physical leftovers of an older world order, abandoned American radar systems, Cold War infrastructure, and military sites built for a threat that no longer looked urgent once the Soviet Union collapsed. Back then, the Arctic felt frozen, distant, and strategically quiet. The logic was simple. If the ocean stays locked under ice, it's hard for navies, trade routes, and global competition to move through it. But that assumption is breaking. The Arctic is warming far faster than the rest of the planet. Research has found large parts of the Arctic have warmed around 4 times faster than the global average over recent decades. And when ice retreats, the strategic map changes. Because where oceans open, countries show up. And what draws them is a mix of 3 forces: new shipping routes, new resources, and the ability to project influence in a region that used to be inaccessible. Now zoom out to the players. Canada argues the Northwest Passage runs through its territory. Russia has expanded its Arctic posture and is active across its northern frontier. The United States has been investing heavily in icebreaker capacity and Arctic presence, and even China, a non-Arctic nation, has been pushing for influence through partnerships and investment. In the middle of all this sits Greenland. Greenland is geographically positioned as a gateway into the Arctic Ocean. Much of it lies within the Arctic Circle, and it's close enough to North America that it has long mattered to U.S. security planners. During the 20th century, the United States built bases and radar systems across Greenland as part of an early warning network, designed to detect threats approaching over the pole. That strategic logic didn't disappear. It evolved. One of the most important remaining U.S. installations is what used to be known as Thule Air Base, now renamed Pituffik Space Base, reflecting its role in missile warning and space-related missions. For a while after the Cold War, Greenland's importance faded in the public imagination. The Arctic looked like a frozen backwater. Then climate, technology, and geopolitics brought it back. As ice retreats, the Arctic becomes more navigable, more economically attractive, and more militarily relevant. It also increases focus on the resources tied to Arctic access: hydrocarbons, fisheries, and minerals. And minerals matter more than most people realize. Greenland is often discussed as a potential source of critical minerals used in modern electronics and industrial supply chains. That alone draws attention from global powers looking to diversify supply away from choke points. That context helps explain why Greenland repeatedly shows up in the headlines, including when Donald Trump publicly floated the idea of the United States buying Greenland during his first term. The idea didn't go anywhere, but it signaled something real. Major powers were starting to think about Greenland as strategic terrain again. And the shift wasn't only military, it was diplomatic. In 2020, the United States reopened its consulate in Nuuk, Greenland's capital, for the first time since 1953, reestablishing a formal diplomatic footprint on the island. Now here's where the story gets more modern and more subtle. This isn't only about bases and warships. It's about influence through infrastructure, financing, and economic leverage. One of the clearest flashpoints was airports. Greenland wants stronger air links to support development, tourism, and connectivity. But airports are expensive. And when Greenland explored financing options, Chinese involvement became part of the conversation, raising concerns in Washington about long-term leverage and strategic access. That pattern is familiar globally. Major powers competing not only with military tools, but with loans, construction contracts, and long-term economic ties. The United States pushed to block Chinese footholds in sensitive infrastructure, and in several cases stepped up with alternative funding and support to keep the strategic balance from shifting. The outcome was not a single dramatic event, but a series of quiet decisions that collectively shape influence. At the same time, the U.S. has increased its own investment and posture for Arctic operations. That includes icebreaker funding aimed at improving U.S. access and presence in ice-covered waters. So what does all of this add up to? It adds up to a world where Greenland is no longer an overlooked island on the edge of a frozen ocean. It's becoming a place with leverage, because as the Arctic opens, Greenland sits close to emerging routes, close to strategic sea lanes, and close to the geographic geometry of great power competition at the top of the planet. And there's another layer that matters: the Greenlanders themselves. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, but it has its own politics and priorities, and the people who live there are increasingly aware that outside powers want something from their region. That creates a new kind of negotiation, not just between superpowers, but between superpowers and smaller societies that now sit on strategically valuable ground. The big takeaway is simple. The Arctic is changing physically, and that is changing it politically. And Greenland is one of the clearest places to watch that transformation, because when ice retreats, maps don't just change on paper. They change in real policy, real money, and real power.